All right, let's look at this example over here and come up with the appropriate staging and grading. Remember, we only stage and grade our client that have periodontitis, that have bone loss. So in this case, we have a 28-year-old client, interdental cal of 3 to 4 millimeters. So let's imagine this. So imagine we have a full probing depth, and it's saying the highest interdental cal we have is 3 to 4 millimeters. So let's look at the probing depth. These are all the probing depth. This is the gingival margin line. This is the cal. And let's say we got some more readings and we got some cals of, let's fix that. We got some cals of 3. We got some cals of 4. We got some cals of 1. We got some cals of 2. Another 3, another 4. Okay, this is a hypothetical example. So what we do now is we look at the highest cal, and the highest cal we got is a 4. So that's what they're referring to in this case study, that the highest cal is a 4. The probing depths are 5 millimeters or less. So if I were to change the color to red, it would make it easier. So we see some 4 millimeter pocket. We also now see some 5 millimeter pockets. We see some 4s. So what we do is we look at the entire mouth and we find the worst reading, and the worst reading is a 5. And that's how they came up with this, that the probing depths are 5 millimeters or less, because we saw some 5. We also saw some 3, 2, 3. We saw some 4s, but the highest probing depth was a 4. Mostly horizontal bone loss, as we see. Okay, this person is smoking a pack of cigarette a day. Now what we got to do is we got to figure out what stage and grade they are. So to do this, we look at the AAP guidelines that they have for staging and grading. So let's look at interdental cal. Interdental cal, the highest was a 4 millimeters. So that's not 1 or 2, 3 to 4. We didn't see any 5 cals. We saw 4 millimeter cal. So what we're going to do is we're going to circle this. The next thing we're going to look at is the radiographic bone loss, or LBL. And so if we look at this radiographic bone loss here, what we see over here is that we have to look at the entire radiographs, and we got to find the worst bone level. And I think they pretty much look similar, but let's hypothetically say that this is the worst bone level that I see. And so this is saying is, well, where is the bone loss? Where is it? Is it 15%? And if it was 15%, what you would do is, this is your CEJ right here. 15% would be like maybe just like right over here. So that's how much 15% bone loss would look like. And you just imagine bone level would be up to here. If it's extending to the middle third of the root, which basically means and beyond, the middle third, so kind of like the middle, if it's from here and beyond, okay, so if the bone level was here or less or beyond, then you would circle this or this section over here. And that's what we see here. We see that it's past the middle section. It's gone, the radiographic bone level has passed that middle section. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle this one. Okay? It has extended to the middle third of the root and beyond. Now the next thing we look at is tooth loss. And this tooth loss is only due to perio, so not due to cavities. It's only due to perio. And when we look over here, it says here this person has no tooth loss due to periodontitis. So all their teeth are still intact. So if there's no tooth loss, I'm going to circle this. Then it says, well, let's look at other local features. And so we're looking at probing depth, which is 5 millimeters or less. So 5 millimeters or less falls under this one, this category. This is 4 millimeters or less for stage 1. This is 6 millimeter or less for stage 3. So I'm seeing 5 millimeter or less. It's also saying, okay, the other ones are for grading. So now what you do is you figure out where is the circle that is on the worst extreme. And on the most extreme, it is a stage 3. So in this case, I know we have circles in stage 1. I know we have more circles in stage 2. But the rule for periodontitis is you get the worst stage. And the worst stage is stage 3. So this person is stage 3. Now what you do is you figure out the grade. So let me scroll down, and we're going to figure out the grade. So we do the same thing. We're going to circle again. So let's look over here. Did we see any bone loss over the past 5 years? Well, when you look over here, it says that there was evidence of 2 millimeters or more, okay, or more attachment loss over the 5-year period. So which one does it best fall under? It best falls under this category because it was 2 millimeters or more, so that's what this stands for, over the past 5 years. We also know that this person smokes a pack of cigarettes a day. So if someone is smoking a pack, which is 20 cigarettes or more, more than 10 cigarettes, then we're going to circle this one. Now we look at what the highest grade is, and the highest grade is grade C. And so that's what we're going to say. This person is stage 3, grade C. Now, normally when we do grading, just some tips you should know is that we always stick with grade B. If you don't know any information, always assume grade B, and that's what this is saying, unless you have evidence to show that it's a grade C. So in this case, we know that he's losing a lot of bone over the 5-year period, and we also know that he is smoking a pack a day. So that shifts him into grade C. One last thing I want to point out is how do you calculate this percent bone loss over age? And then you can figure out what category they fall under. Well, there's a certain way to do this. Well, we know his age is 28. Okay, so we know the age is 28. So I'm going to put 28 right over here, 28. Put the division sign. So the division sign from here is going here. Then we're looking at the percent bone loss. We're going to find the worst bone loss here. And what do you think? So this is 50%. This over here is 25%. This is 50%. I don't know, would you say 70% or 80% or 85% maybe? Because this is like 100% would be here. So let's hypothetically say 80%. This person has lost 80% of bone. And again, you're guesstimating. Half of that is 50%. Go further down. Maybe this is 80%. So what you're going to do is you're going to take 80% and divide it by 28. And so let's do that. I'm going to pull up a calculator. And we're going to do this. So it's saying 80%, because that's how much bone loss he has. So 80 divided by his age, and his age is 28. So if I go 80 divided by 28, I'm getting 2.85, okay, or 2.9. So his radiographic bone level is 2.9. 2.9 is more than 1, so that puts him in this category. So again, he is still a grade C. Even when you calculate the radiographic bone level, he still falls under the grade C category. So let's look at another example. So here we have a 50-year-old client. The highest interdental cal was a 4, so 3 to 4 millimeters. No tooth loss. Highest probe index was a 5, so 5 millimeters or less. Radiographic bone loss extends to the coronal third of the root, so it hasn't progressed to the middle third. It's not in the middle third, it's more towards the coronal third. Horizontal bone loss, less than 2 millimeters of attachment loss over the past 5-year period, non-smoker, and not diabetic. Okay, so let's go through these categories again. So interdental cal, 4 millimeter was the highest, so that puts us in this category. Not 1 to 2, and it wasn't 5, the highest was a 4. Radiographic bone loss. Well, radiographic bone loss extends to the coronal third of the tooth. So remember, coronal basically means towards the crown. So this is coronal, this is middle, and this is apical. So coronal is somewhere around here. So the bone level is really close to the coronal section, or the coronal side. Okay, so where does that put us over here? To the coronal third. Is it in this size? Is it on stage 1 or is it on stage 2? Well, again, let's just look at the radiographic picture more closely. Okay. So to do so, we know half of that. I'm just going to bring a pen. Sorry. Okay. So half of that is 50%. So when you look at the end of the root to the CEJ, and roughly half of that is 50%. So this is just the radiographic bone loss it's not extending, it's not in the middle third, but it's not, I think I would probably put it in this category. It's not less than 15%. If it was less than 15%, the radiographic bone level would be a little higher. Because it's a little lower, I would probably put them in the 15 to 33% range. So I'm going to circle this. Where is the maximum probe index? Was it a 4, a 5, or a 6? Well, let's look here. 5 millimeter. is the highest probing depth. So I'm going to circle this. I'm also going to circle this because most of the bone loss is horizontal bone loss. As we see, it's like an even reduction of the bone. So based on this, because I've circled all stage 2, I'm going to say that this person is a stage 2 periodontal client. The next thing we got to figure out is, well, what grade is he? So let's look at the grading. So when we look at the grading, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at his radiographic bone loss, or CAL, and we're going to look at the bone level. Has he lost bone over the past 5-year period, and has it been 2 millimeters or less, or is it more than 2 millimeters? And it says here less than 2 millimeters. So because it's less than 2 millimeters, that's what I'm going to circle. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate the percent bone loss over age. So this guy is 50 years old, and if we were to guesstimate his bone level, we know that this is 50%. So maybe he's lost, I don't know, 30% of bone, right? So this, could be 30% because we know this is 50. So I'm guesstimating this could be 30. So in this case, what you would do is to calculate this, you would take his age. Okay, so his age is 50. And you take his percent bone loss, and his percent of bone loss we said was 30. So we go 30%. And then remember, we're just following this formula, divided by his age, which is 50. And so when we calculate that, let's bring up the calculator again. I'm going to shift this over so we can see better. So 30%, so we go 30 divided by 50. And when I do that, I get 0.6. Okay. 0.6. 0.6, which category does this fall under? I would say right here, because it's between 0.25 and 1.0. So this person, does he smoke? No. Is he diabetic? No. So we can put he's not a smoker, he's not diabetic. Okay. What you want to do here is you want to find the worst area. And the worst area over here is not a grade A, it's a grade B, because that's the worst one. And so that's why I would say that he is a grade B, because you always select the worst column. And the worst column in this case is grade B. Let's do one more example. Here we have a 47-year-old. The highest interdental CAL is a 5. 4 teeth lost due to perio. Probing depth of 6 millimeter or more. Radiographic bone loss extends to the middle third of root. Vertical bone loss, we do see some, and evidence of less than 2 millimeter attachment loss. Not a smoker, is diabetic. Okay, let's start by interdental CAL. The highest interdental CAL was 5. Okay, so let's circle this. 5 millimeters. It could also be this one too, stage 4, but let's find more evidence to make it a stage 4 if it falls under this column. Next thing is radiographic bone level. Radiographic bone loss or bone level is to the middle third of the root. So it's extending to the middle third of the root and beyond. And let's see if we can see that in the radiograph. So if we look at the radiograph, we find the worst area, and the worst area in my opinion is here. The worst bone level is right over here. And so is that like in the middle and beyond? I think so. It is. I think it is. And this is like the middle part. And again, to see this, kind of outline the entire root. Oops. And the middle is over here, right? The middle of the bone is kind of over here. And so the bone level is on the middle third of the root. So that's why we're circling this. Tooth loss. Has he lost any teeth? Let's see. 4 teeth lost due to perio. So we're going to circle this. 4, not 5. It said 4, so we're going to circle 4. And remember, these are because of periodontitis, not because of cavities, not wisdom teeth removal or extraction. It's 4 teeth because of perio. Okay, let's move on. Probing depth, 6 millimeter or more. 6 millimeters or more. Okay, let's hypothetically say that when we looked at all the probing depths, the highest one we saw was 6 millimeters. So not 4, the highest was not 4, the highest was not a 5, the highest was a 6 millimeter or more. So I'm going to circle that. Did we see vertical bone loss? Yeah, it says there is some vertical bone loss, so we're going to circle that. All right, so based on this, I think we can safely say that he is in a stage 3 category. So stage 3. Now let's look at the grade. Okay, so when we're looking at the grade, the first thing we want to look at is his radiographic bone loss. Did he lose bone over the 5-year period? And he did lose bone, but it was less than 2 millimeters. So less than 2 millimeters falls under this category. What is the percentage of bone loss over age? Well, let's just say he lost 50% of bone, as we see here, 50% of bone, and he is 47 years of age. So what we do is we take 50%, he lost 50% of bone, we're guesstimating, and he is 47 years old. So let's calculate that. And when we do, what we're going to get is 50 divided by 47 is 1.06. Oh, okay. So 1.06. I'm just going to round it up and I'm just going to say 1.0. Okay. I know it said 1.06, but let's just round it up and make it 1.0. So that falls under this category. It's like right towards the end of that category, actually. So 1.0. Okay. He is not a smoker. So we're going to circle that. He has a history of diabetes. So we're going to circle this. So yeah, we see some circles in grade A, but the worst area is always in grade B. So this guy, because we have lots of circles here and we don't have any circle here, if we had even one circle here, he would automatically go to grade C. But because we don't have any circle in the grade C region, we will say that he is grade B. Let's actually attempt one more. So this guy over here is 53 years, interdental cal of 5 millimeter or more than 5 teeth lost due to perio, probendents for 6 millimeters or even more, radiographic bone length extends to the mid-third of the root. And that's true. When you look at his radiographic bone level, so let's look at the worst one, you can see that this is the middle of the root and the bone level has surpassed that middle. So it is past the middle third. We do see some vertical bone loss. If you look here, it is vertical bone loss that we do see. It's not an even reduction. We do see that slope. And even here, we can see some vertical bone loss. He's not diabetic, and he smokes half a pack of cigarettes a day. So what stage or grade is this client? Well, he has an interdental cal of 5 millimeter or more. So he could be either stage 3 or stage 4. I'm just going to go with stage 3. I'm going to go with the lower end just for now. He has lost more than 5 teeth. Oh, okay, look at that. This is 4 or more teeth. Here, he said he has lost 5 teeth, and they're all due to periodontitis. So they were all mobile because of perio, and he eventually lost it. So 5 teeth has been lost. Probe in depth of 6 millimeter or more. Okay, so probe in depth of 6 millimeter or more. I'm going to circle that. Radiographic bone loss extends to the middle third of root. Extends to the middle third of root and beyond. So I'm going to circle this. I could also circle this too, but I'm just going to go and be conservative and circle the stage 3 instead of stage 4. He's got vertical bone loss. Oh yes, he has vertical bone loss. Okay, so based on this, there's a lot of stage 3 circled, but there's also one stage 4 circled. And so given this, I'm going to always choose the worst area, right? That's what we have to do with this. We always choose the worst area. And so for this person, this guy is, oops, I cannot spell today, stage 4. Okay, so stage 4. Because the worst one is this one here. Okay, let's move on. Let's look at the grading. So when we're looking at the grading, it says that there is evidence of less than 2 millimeter additional attachment loss. So one thing I want you guys to know is anytime we grade, automatically assume that the client is a grade B, unless you have evidence to shift them to a grade A or C. So automatically, I'm assuming he's a grade B. But let's look at all the information here. Less than 2 millimeter additional attachment loss. So that's this one over here. He does have less than 2 millimeter of bone loss over the past 5 years. He is not diabetic. Okay, so he's not diabetic. He smokes half a pack of cigarettes a day. Okay, half a pack includes 10 cigarettes a day. So where do we see the most circle? We see the most circle in grade B. So therefore, this client is a grade B client. All right, I hope that helps. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.